What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the numbers. This is my betting breakdown video for UFC Vegas 60. We have Corey Sandhagen going against Song Yadong.
I need all the wins, yeah. Harder than all of this. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out. You better move, you might get knocked out. Knocked out.
And we're back for another betting breakdown video this week, breaking down a very fun card, a 13-fight card. We did unfortunately lose the Aspen Ladd versus Sarah McMahon fight due to, I believe it was Aspen Ladd missing weight by a couple pounds. So that fight is off. We are now down to 13 fights. But I really like this card, not only from a betting perspective, but a fan perspective as well. If you are a fan of violence, I think it's going to be a good card for you. I think there's a lot of very violent fights, a lot of fights that are going to end inside the distance, and a lot of fun fights overall. So really looking forward to it, really looking forward to breaking it down. Before we get started, if you guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are not already. It does go a long way. It is always much appreciated. I do appreciate all the support week in and week out. But yeah, I say we get right into it. I have a lot of action. This is, I think, my third or fourth biggest betting card since I've started tracking back in, I think, 2019. So yeah, lots of action, lots to talk about. I say we get right into it. We're going to start with the first fight of the night, Nicholas Moda going against Cameron Van Camp. This is a fight where I do have two bets, and a lot of the bets I did place were on Monday, so these lines have moved quite a bit, but I will talk about some current lines as well that do stick out. So I have two bets here. The first one was the under 2.5 rounds, minus 135. I have one unit on that, and then I also have a unit on the fight doesn't go to decision, minus 170 as well. I see the fight doesn't go to decision still around that minus 200 range. I think that's a very good look. I think violence is the answer in this fight. Two guys that are very dangerous. Cameron Van Camp around an 85% finish rate. Moda has a ton of power in his hands. You also see that Moda's been finished a ton. Moda's been finished in all 4 of his losses. Van Camp finished in 3 of 6. I think if Moda's winning this fight, he's knocking out Cameron Van Camp, who has currently a 29% strike in defense, and not only in the Fiallo fight, but even go out and watch some of his fights outside the UFC. His hands are very low. He's walking forward with his chin up. He's there to be hit, and Moda hits like a truck. But on the flip side, I think Moda is pretty chinny, actually. We've seen him get knocked out. We've seen him get submitted. And like I said, Van Camp's very dangerous. So I think the fight doesn't go, covers both sides, right around that minus 200 range. I do like that a lot. I have a unit on the under 2.5, a unit on the fight doesn't go. And then there's also a prop that really stuck out to me, and I was actually shocked to see this line. I didn't quite pull the trigger on it, but if you are on the Van Camp side, which a lot of people are, obviously, this line has came down a ton. Van Camp by knockout, I saw on, what was it? Was it DraftKings or FanDuel? I think it was it FanDuel? It was FanDuel. No, yes, it was FanDuel. FanDuel has Cameron Van Camp by knockout at plus 1,000. Like, Moda's been knocked out 3 times, and I think DraftKings had the plus 900 there. So I didn't quite pull the trigger on that, but that was the line where I was like, well, I think it's mispriced, but yeah, give me violence here. I think somebody's getting knocked out. I'll pick Moda for the knockout, but no faith in this guy. Javid Basharat going against Tony Gravely. I have a unit on the fight doesn't go to decision, minus 135. The line is currently there on Bovada Sportsbook. Tony Gravely is a fighter that has been finished a lot. He's been finished 6 times, 6 of 7 losses. Javid Basharat went the distance for the very first time in his last fight against Trevin Jones. I think if Basharat does win this fight, and he is favored to win the fight, I do think he either knocks out Gravely, who we have seen get knocked out by Menes, or submission. I'm kind of leaning more the submission route personally. Gravely's been put in so many bad spots throughout his career, and he's been submitted so many times in his career as well. Even that fight against Simon Oliveira, he was almost submitted in the very first round. I think Javid's super dangerous anywhere the fight goes, and I think he's going to have a lot of opportunities here. As the fight goes on, I see Gravely slowing down. I think Basharat eventually finds something. But on the flip side, you have Tony Gravely, who this guy's going to go out there. He's going to chuck heat. He's going to look to take off the head of Javid Basharat. This guy hits very hard. So I think, once again, the fight doesn't go to decision, covers both sides there. I think somebody's getting finished in this fight. I'll pick Basharat for the win. I would not touch the money line, though. I think there's a lot of question marks about the takedown defense of Basharat. I went and watched every fight I could. I literally saw no footage of his takedown defense. I don't know if it's good or if it's bad. So from a money line standpoint, I'm kind of staying away. But from a violence standpoint, I do like violence as well. Next, we have Jillian Robertson going against Maria Agapova. I was able to get in on the under 2.5 very early on Monday. 1 unit plus 110, and I still think violence is the answer here. Still around like the minus 175 range for that fight doesn't go. I think that's a very good look. because we have two fighters that are very dangerous. Maria Agapova has a ton of power in her hands, and we have Jillian Robertson, who's a black belt in BJJ. And then just stylistically how this fight matches up, we have a striker in Agapova who's going to go out there, and on the feet she's going to have a significant advantage, and if Robertson's not able to take her down, Agapova's going to knock her out. On the flip side, Robertson, if she's able to take down Agapova, Robertson's going to have a significant advantage on the mat. Black belt in BJJ, I believe Agapova's a white belt. We've seen Agapova struggle a ton with the takedown defense, and she got finished by Shanna Dobson, taken down twice in that fight. She got finished by Marina Rose, taken down a few times in that fight. She got taken down multiple times by Tracy Cortez and controlled for that fight. I mean, it's just a clear path to victory here for Robertson, so I like the under. I like the fight doesn't go to decision. And I honestly like the Robertson money line a little bit as well. It's one that I kind of passed on, but I think Robertson has a very, very good chance to win this fight if she does implement the right game plan, and I do expect her to. So under 2.5, 1 unit, plus 110 for me. Next, we have Daniel Zellhuber going against Trey Ogden. And this was, I believe, the first bet I placed this week. I think it was on Sunday. I put 2.5 units on one Daniel Zellhuber at minus 245. I actually missed the minus 220 by like a couple minutes. Yeah, he was sitting at minus 220, and now he's a very popular play. He's now minus 320. I think I saw him like minus 380. So money's pouring in on Zellhuber, and rightfully so. I think this guy's the goods. I think he's very young, room to improve, and it's crazy. You take a look at this guy. He's already super good. He's a great striker, great grappler, BJJ black belt, great takedown defense. I think Ogden's really going to struggle here. Ogden was outstruck by Jordan Levitt. Not a good look there. I think, Zellhuber's obviously a better striker than Jordan Levitt. I think anybody else in the division is a better striker than Jordan Levitt. So that was a bad look. And then another bad look for me was Ogden not being able to take down Jordan Levitt, who literally welcomes being taken down. So I just think, Zellhuber's going to give him a lot of problems here. And I'm personally picking Zellhuber to win by decision, but a finish wouldn't shock me. But yeah, give me the money line for Zellhuber. I think he's a good parlay piece. If you're into the parlays, I have a couple parlays this week, actually. And I'll say he's a good parlay piece, but I did play him straight at minus 245 earlier in the week for 2.5 units to win a little bit over one. Luma, Luke Boomy going against Denise Gomes. No bet here. I'll keep it short. I think it's a good spot for Loma, and it's a spot where I don't want to say I'm getting tempted, but I think she's getting about to the range where I'd be considering a play on Loma. I think I saw her at like minus 180, minus 190. Like, she should win this fight. I think she's the much better fighter. Gomes coming in on short notice here. I guess Gomes can, make it close just by coming forward, throwing a ton of volume, but clearly the better striker is Luma Luke Boomy by a mile here. Luma's the pick, but no bet on this fight for me. All right, next we have Trevin Giles going against Luis Cosi. I do have a bet on this one. I have the fight doesn't go to decision, minus 155, 3 units on it. I was actually debating putting a little bit more on that, and that line was actually out there for almost 2 days. I was like, why isn't this line moving? And it finally did a little bit, and it's still out there like minus 200, minus 190, something like that. And I think, people, I guess, have never seen Luis Cosi fight. I mean, you go watch this guy fight, he just goes in, and as soon as the fight starts, he's rushing forward, trying to take his opponent's head off, and if he gets the finish, he does. If he doesn't, we saw what happened in the Sasha Plotnikov fight. He was done at the end of the first round against Sasha Plotnikov. Plotnikov was able to finish him here. We have Trevin Giles, who is super dangerous. I believe he's a BJJ black belt, I think he just got. He has a ton of power in his hands. And Luis Cosi, same thing, has a ton of power in his hands. Luis Cosi, all of his wins come in the very first round. Trevin Giles has been finished in all 4 of his losses, 2 by knockout, 2 by sub. He's been knocked out twice in a row in his last 2 fights. And Luis Cosi's been finished in his only loss as well. So 100% of the losses have finished inside the distance. Luis Cosi, the definition of a killer-be-killed fighter. You could say the same thing about Trevin Giles. So yeah, 3 units on the fight, doesn't go to decision, minus 155. And then I also sprinkled a quarter unit on Luis Cosi to win in round 1 on FanDuel Sportsbook at plus 850. I think that's literally his win condition. He's never won any other way. So a quarter unit on Luis Cosi, plus 850. I think if he wins this fight, it will be in that first round. I also saw, I think it was DraftKings or FanDuel also has the Cosi round 1 knockout at plus 1,000, something like that. But I just took the plus 850 just to cover the sub because Giles has been subbed twice. So I'm liking violence here as well. As far as a pick, you got to go Giles. He's the much better fighter, but Cosi's going to be very live in that first round. All right, next we have Pat Sabatini going against Damon Jackson. And I have a play on the under 2.5 rounds here. Kind of a contrarian play here. Plus 205, half a unit. Kind of a play on the number because we have a guy in Damon Jackson who is a killer be killed fighter. This guy's nearly a 90% finish rate, and he's been finished in all his losses. 3 by knockout, 1 by sub. And you take a look at Jackson, his last 14 fights, 12 of those 14 have finished inside the distance. So typically, his fights are ending inside the distance. And on the feet, Jackson's going to have the volume. He's probably going to be the better striker overall. But Sabatini is going to have the power. Sabatini hurts people on the feet. We saw him hurt his last opponent. We saw him hurt that dude in his debut as well, drop him. I've seen him get a knockout outside the UFC as well. So Pat Sabatini does have a lot of power, and Jamin Jackson's been hurt and knocked out quite a bit. So I could see like a club and sub, and I'm actually predicting a club and sub from Pat Sabatini. There's going to be a lot of scrambles, a lot of opportunities here, and both guys are super dangerous. So this is I think the second most likely fight to go the distance according to the odds, but I'm just going to take a half unit shot on the under 2.5 and see what happens here. Anthony Hernandez, Marc-Andre Barriault. I was kind of tempted on Hernandez earlier in the week around like minus 150, minus 145, that area. I passed, and my goodness, he's like minus 220 now. So this is a pass for me. I thought I would be playing Hernandez for sure this week, and I looked into the fight a little bit more and saw that Marc-Andre Barriault, he can be taken down, but his get-up game's elite. He's able to pop right back up, and if that's the case, I think it's going to be a very close fight. So I don't really want to touch the minus 220, 230 on the Hernandez money line. This is a clear pass spot for me. No props stick out. I'll pick Hernandez to win the fight, but I do think it's going to be a lot closer than I originally thought. Tanner Boser going against Rodrigo Nascimento. I do have a bet here. I have 1 unit on the under 2.5 rounds at minus 108. Could not believe they had the line at minus 108 for the under in this fight. And it looks like the fight doesn't go to decision is around like minus 200 now. I think that's a good look as well. We have two guys, it's kind of like the Robertson-Agapova fight. We have a striker versus grappler matchup, and this is a heavyweight fight. You have Tanner Boser, who is going to have just a massive striking advantage. We saw what Alain Badeau was able to do to Nascimento. Badeau was close to getting Nascimento out of there. Badeau dominated Nascimento in that first round. Tanner Boser is a much, much better fighter than Alain Badeau. And on the flip side, Nascimento, he's a BJJ black belt. He's going to have a huge size advantage. He's going to be a much heavier fighter. If he can get on top, I think he can cause some problems here for Tanner Boser. So I think the fight doesn't go around the minus 200 range. The under 2.5 is a very good look. It covers both sides. Striker versus grappler matchup. I think somebody's getting finished, whether it's a Tanner Boser knockout or a Nascimento sub. I'm personally going with the Nascimento side, but not a ton of confidence in that, and I just don't think there's a ton of value on those sub props. I think they're kind of all over it, like plus 350. I'm fine with passing on that. But yeah, fight doesn't go. Good look. Under 2.5, good look. I have under 2.5, 1 unit, minus 108. All right, this is my main event of the night. A lot of my action comes down to this Joseph Pyfer versus Alan Imedovsky fight, and I'll just talk about the bets I have. So I have Alan Imedovsky parlayed with Ikram Aliskerov, who was on the Contender Series against Mario Souza. He was able to go out there and get that first round finish, and that came out to minus 190. I have 2.5 units on that, so I have Pyfer and a parlay. On top of that, I have the under 1.5 rounds, 2.5 units on that at minus 160. On top of that, I have the fight doesn't go to decision at minus 400, parlayed with two other things. So I have the Pyfer money line. I have the under 1.5. I have the fight doesn't go in 2 parlays. So a lot of my night comes down to this fight first and foremost finishing, and then also Joseph Pyfer getting the finish as well. And then I also have a quarter unit sprinkle on Alan Imedovsky to win by first round knockout at plus 2,500. Was on Bet Online earlier in the week. That line has been smashed a little bit. It's currently like plus 1,800, which still, that's literally how he wins the fight. He's going to go out there. He's going to try to stand and bang with Pyfer, and Imedovsky does one thing good and one thing good only, and that thing is he hits very hard. So if Imedovsky wins this fight, I think it's by first round knockout. Plus 2,500 just made no sense. Quarter unit sprinkle on that. So, but this should be Joe Pyfer all day. Alan Imedovsky, he's just not good at a lot of things. His takedown defense is 0%. He has no ground game at all. I mean, Pyfer can take him down and TKO him or sub him easily. And then on the feet, Imedovsky's chin's not great. I mean, this is Pyfer all day. I think Pyfer's a solid parlay piece. I think the under 1.5 is a really good look. I think the fight doesn't go to decision as a parlay piece. And like I said, a lot of my night is coming down to this fight. If If Amedovski wins the decision here, I will be probably living on the streets from now on. But I do think this fight is going to be a violent fight and ends pretty early with the Joe Pyfer finish. All right, Bill Algeo going against Andre Fili. I have a bet here. I have the over 2.5 rounds. Parlayed with that fight, doesn't go to decision. One of my couple parlays on the card. I got it at minus 124, came out to, and I have 1.25 units on that. I think this is an over fight. We talked about violence all card, but both guys super tough, super durable, especially Bill Algeo. I mean, this guy's submission defense has definitely been on point as of late. He has been submitted a couple times in the past, a few years ago. Submission defenses look good. His chin's phenomenal, never been knocked out. Bill Algeo, not much of a finisher in his own right. I know he finished Herbert Burns in his last fight, but Burns had about 30 seconds of cardio. I think this is a close fight. I think it goes over. I'm liking the over 2.5. I'm liking the fight goes decision. And I'm picking the dog and Bill Algeo to make this close and competitive. I love the volume of Bill Algeo, the get-up game. But, yeah, give me the over in the parlay there. Gregory Rodriguez going against Chidi Njokuani. I have two bets here. The first bet is going to be the fight doesn't go to decision. I have 2 units on it at minus 180. And then I also have a half a unit on the Njokuani scorecards equals no action at plus 165. That is now plus 140. And I still think there's some good value on that because a couple reasons. Njokuani is a minus 120 favorite, first off. The second reason is I think somebody's getting finished here. And it kind of reminds me of the Ian Kudalaba Johnny Walker fight where somebody's getting finished and somebody's probably getting finished in the first round. I feel like that line should be a pick'em. I feel like this line in general should be a pick'em, minus 110 each way. And I feel like the scorecards no action on Bet Online should be a pick'em as well. Somebody's going to get knocked out. Who's going to land the first shot? I'm personally picking Chidi. I mean, the guy is going to have a reach advantage. He hits super hard, and I think he's really turned a corner in his career. I know some people are on Gregory Rodriguez this week, and it makes sense. He's probably the more well-rounded fighter overall, but he doesn't use that ground game as much as he should. You go back and watch that Petrosyan fight, 0 takedowns in the first round, just inexcusable. If he goes out there and stands and bangs with Njokuani, there's a very good chance he gets knocked out, and I think that's what's going to happen. So I think somebody's getting knocked out. I think the fight doesn't go as a good look, and also that scorecard's no action on Njokuani. The finish only is also a solid look if you can get it at any plus money, I'd say. And then the main event, Corey Sandhagen, Song Yadong. Yeah, I like Sandhagen here. As far as a bet on him, I think I'm going to stay away. Minus 180, I mean, it feels about right. Minus 180, minus 200 range. It feels about right to me. I think early on this fight's going to be very competitive. You're going to have the volume of Sandhagen, the big shots of Song Yadong. I guess there's question marks on what Song Yadong looks like in that 4th and 5th round. I guess it could be close, but I think just down the stretch, it's going to be Sandhagen taking over, landing more. I think he's the better striker overall. He's fought the much better competition by a mile here. I like Sandhagen for the win, just not enough to really lay a bet on him at minus 180 here. I do have him I do have a parlay on this fight. The over 1.5 parlayed with the fight doesn't go in the Pyfer fight. It came out to minus 150, and I have 1.5 units on that. So, like I said, a lot of my night comes down to the Pyfer fight, Pyfer getting a finish, and the fight finishing in general. If it went the distance, and if Amedovski won a decision, I'd be pretty surprised there. But I'll quickly go over my action. I know I have a ton of bets. Not my biggest card ever, but a pretty big card for me. I love this fight from a fight card from a betting perspective. Lots of spots sticking out, lots of violence sticking out. So hopefully it's a good night there. All right, first bet, Daniel Zellhuber, 2.5 units, minus 245. The parlay, Ikram Aliskerov, which was Contender Series, parlayed with Joe Pyfer, minus 190, 2.5 units. Under 2.5 rounds, Nascimento Bozer, minus 108. Under 2.5 rounds, Robertson Agapova, plus 110, 1 unit. Fight doesn't go. Chidi Njokuani, Rodriguez, minus 182 units. Rodriguez, Chidi, and Njokuani. Chidi Njokuani, scorecard equals no action, plus 165, half a unit. Amedovski, Pyfer, under 1.5 rounds, 2.5 units, minus 160. Amedovski wins in round 1 by knockout, plus 2,500 quarter unit. Jackson Sabatini, under 2.5 rounds, plus 205, half a unit. Moda Van Camp, under 2.5 rounds, minus 135, 1 unit. Cosi, Giles, fight doesn't go to decision, 3 units, minus 155. Moda, Van Camp, fight doesn't go, minus 171 unit. Basharat Gravely, fight doesn't go, minus 135, 1 unit. Luis Cosi wins in round 1, plus 850 quarter unit. And then my 2 parlays, fight doesn't go to decision. Pyfer Amedovski, parlay with the over to 1.5 rounds with Sandhagen Yadong, minus 150, 1.5 units. And then we have Amedovski Pyfer, fight doesn't go to decision, parlayed with Fili Algeo over 2.5 rounds, minus 124, 1.25 units. Best of luck, everybody. Should be a fun card. Enjoy it. And we'll talk to you guys very soon. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel. You can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. If you have any questions, my DMs are always open. And best of luck for UFC Vegas 60. Let us make some money on Saturday. See you guys.